Full transparency. I used to be one of those people who, when I would hear someone talking about and teaching about how important it is to love yourself, how you need to be investing in your self-love on a regular basis, I would think to myself, that's ridiculous. That is so silly. There's someone teaching people how to become more selfish and self-absorbed, and I don't think that's cool. I think that's wrong. I think that's backwards. I don't think they should be doing that. And then I started learning about what self-love is. Then I started really learning about what it means to love yourself and what happens when we do. And I got schooled. And my mind was changed, and I realized I was completely wrong about this one. Loving yourself is not selfish. Loving yourself doesn't make you a silly, frivolous, ridiculous person. And I'm going to talk to you today about why that is. And maybe you have some blocks. Maybe the idea of self-love makes you uncomfortable, even just hearing me saying that. You might get these kind of like wiggly, kind of resistant feelings coming up. And to just notice that, and then watch this video and see if your mind completely changes by the end of it. I hope it does. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below, and if you are back again, say hello. I love being able to connect with you all down in the comments. Oh, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I think the button is right about down there, so then you can get notifications when new videos come up. Either way, my name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my membership community, the Shifts Society. You can get more information about that in the description below. You want to come and join this club. Incredible things are happening for people. Big shifts, big transformations are happening for the people in the Shifts Society. So you can get more information down below. I help heart center go-getter men and women break through the crap that is holding them back so they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And here's the interesting thing. Many of us are okay with the concept when I say, like yourself more. I even say that in my introduction. I teach you how to like yourself and your life more every day. And most of us will receive that. We're like, yeah, I'd like to like myself more. But if you're like me, when we talk about self-love, there is this little resistance, or at least how I used to be. There is this resistance. There's this kind of like weird feeling that comes up when we think about this idea of loving ourselves, fully loving ourselves for who we are. And I'm going to say there's a few reasons for that, why we get the icky feeling, why we get resistant to it, why it feels weird when someone says that or when we think about that as a possibility. And I'm going to talk about 3 of the big reasons why today. And I want you to take a minute. I want you to reflect on whether or not these have ever come up for you. And if there's something else that's been blocking you, I also want you to take a minute and reflect on that, because we have mindset blocks, right? We all have mindset blocks that are keeping us stuck, that are holding us back, that are getting in away from beliefs and ideas and thoughts that we have, that are getting in there and blocking us from being able to fully move forward, to being able to live fully and freely as ourselves. These are messages. These are ideas and beliefs that we learned, that we were taught, that we were told, that we observed, that we are absorbed, that are part of our socialization, and we have just accepted them as truths because at the time when we learned them, we didn't know any better. And now we do know better. We're learning better. And when we learn better, we can think different. We can do different. We can live different. So the first block that you might be experiencing that's preventing you from loving yourself, whether conscious or not, is you think that loving yourself will make you selfish. Just point blank. You think it'll make you selfish. You think it'll make you self-absorbed. You think that it means that if you love yourself, you will be preoccupied with yourself all the time. And you'll become this kind of narcissistic, self-absorbed, kind of holier than thou person. And maybe you have someone like that in your life, or you've seen someone like that and you're like, no, I don't want any part of that. If that's what it means to love yourself, that's icky. I don't like that. I don't want that. But I'm going to tell you, if someone is parading around thinking that they're better than everyone else, chances are they don't actually love themselves. They're just overcompensating with like this false identity. You can tell when someone really does just love and accept themselves because they're not trying. They're not trying to prove anything. As soon as we get into proving energy, it's because we don't believe it. So this belief that loving yourself is going to make you selfish and self-absorbed and only ever thinking about yourself, I'm going to tell you something right now that might hit a bit of a nerve and it might bring up some emotion. So just be present with that and just notice that. But not loving yourself is way more selfish. When you don't love yourself, who are you always thinking about? Who are you always stressing about? Why am I not good enough? Why am I not lovable? Why don't I have what it takes? Nothing goes right for me. Everything is so hard for me. Why does this keep happening to me? I suck. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. It's all about me. We get so preoccupied with our inferiority, our sense of inferiority and our sense of inadequacy and our beliefs about ourselves that are self-rejecting, self-neglecting, self-hating, self-deprecating. We are always thinking about us. So think about that for a second. When we have a healthy relationship with someone, if it's someone on the outside, someone in our lives who you have a healthy relationship with them, you don't sit around obsessing about them all the time. You're just like, yeah, I feel secure in that relationship. I feel good in that relationship. It's a solid, strong foundation, and I can go about living my life, and I invest in that relationship, and I respect that relationship, and I trust that relationship, and I feel good about that relationship, but I'm not preoccupied with that relationship. It's only in our insecure relationships where we feel insecure, where we don't feel safe, where we don't know where the other person stands, we don't know if the other person actually really loves us, we don't know if that person is trustworthy. We don't know if that person is going to be able to, be able to be the person that we want them to be. We don't know what's happening. It's that uncertainty and that insecurity that then we become obsessive about that person. We can't stop thinking about it because there's a sense of unrest. There's a sense of uncertainty. There's a sense of lack of control. We don't know what to do. And so our brain is constantly going around thinking about it. It's the same thing with ourselves. When there isn't that sense of security, when there isn't that solid foundation in who we are, we're always kind of scared that something is going to happen. We're always kind of scared that the ground is going to fall out from under it. And so we're always trying to think about it. We're always obsessing about it. We're always so focused on it. So we are always way more focused on ourselves when we don't have that safe, secure, solid relationship with ourselves. If this brought up some stuff for you right now, just be present with that experience. If you feel resistant to this idea, just be present with that. This is not an accusation. This is not saying that you're a terrible person, right? Watch that self-loathing that is, again, may make this concept about you. And just watch that and just be like, that's interesting. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to reflect on it instead of blaming myself for blaming myself. Just notice that. The next block, the next piece of resistance that can often come up for us that prevents us from loving ourselves is because we think that investing in ourselves is frivolous, it's a waste of time, that taking care of ourselves is not that important, that having boundaries is going to mean that I'm only going to care about myself. If I have boundaries and limits, it means that I'm only caring about myself. And that maybe other people are going to judge me and other people are going to think that I'm selfish. And maybe other people will think that it'll mean that I don't care about them. Maybe I'll make it mean that if I have boundaries and if I take care of myself, then it's going to mean that I'm a selfish person. I don't actually care about other people. But again, the opposite is true. You cannot give from an empty tank. You cannot be a generous, loving, caring, giving, patient human being when you've got nothing left, when we are running on fumes. And many of us, I put a post up on my Instagram that talked about, signs that you're mentally and emotionally exhausted. And so many people had a very intense reaction to that. They're like, oh my gosh, that is me. That I checked all of these boxes. I think there was 15 signs. And so many people were like, I checked all of these boxes. I am mentally and emotionally exhausted. And you can see that post. And you can see what happens when we are mentally and emotionally exhausted. We are not nice people, a lot of us. We don't have anything to give other people. And so then we end up doing and saying things that are not healthy or helpful for our relationships. So this idea that investing in ourselves means that we are frivolous, that we are self-absorbed, that we don't care about other people, the opposite is true. We give to ourselves, we fill up our tank, we have so much more to give to other people. We are able to contribute in such a more effective way into our relationships in a positive and healthy way. And it's so interesting, kind of case in point, a really good friend of mine, her name is Kim, and she is a lovely human being. She is so thoughtful. She is so generous. She's just one of the most amazing people I know, and I love her to bits. And she also takes care of herself without apology. The other day, we were out at the park just sitting and having a little visit after the kids went to bed. I think it was midsummer. So it was later in the evening when it was still light outside, and we were sitting and having a physically distant, just get together a beer. We're having a beer in the garden, in the community garden. Don't tell, whatever. But we were sitting there talking, and she was saying how she gets a massage and a facial every single month. And in my head, I was thinking, I didn't know you were allowed to do that. I didn't know that you were allowed to do that. I didn't know you were allowed to take care of yourself in that way without it meaning that you were a selfish, self-absorbed person. I didn't know you were allowed to invest in yourself to that degree without it meaning that you were just full of yourself, that you thought that you were the only person that mattered. These are kind of ridiculous beliefs when I say them out loud, but in my head, I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could be such a generous and giving person and be hugely generous and giving to yourself. Kim is one of the most generous people that I know, and that generosity extends to other people, and it extends so freely to other people because she allows it to extend freely to herself. I was thinking about this as well. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you see in my stories that I often post about, I do posts of me out running with my kids, running by myself, just moving my body and breathing and processing and just moving energy through and moving my body. And I always feel so much better after I do that. And I run for myself, and I also run for all of you. I run for my clients. I run for my students. I run for the people that I am helping lead and guide and support all over the world. Because when I am taking care of myself, when I am filling my tank, when I am unapologetically and unreservedly investing in myself, in the things that fill me up, I can show up. I have so much more to give. So yes, I run for me, but I also run for you. Giving to yourself does not make you a selfish person. It actually makes you a more abundantly generous and giving person. And then you get to do it fully and freely, not when you're on your last straw and you're at the very end of your rope and you're like, oh, I guess I have to do this because I don't want people to think that I'm selfish if I don't. I don't want people to judge me if I, don't do what they want me to do. I don't want people to get upset with me if I have, if I have boundaries, so I better do whatever they want. And then we're doing it with bitterness and resentment, and when we really don't want to because we're already fully tapped out. The next thing that can stop us from loving ourselves, and this is another really big one, is thinking that it will negatively impact your relationships. And you can maybe hear the truck outside that has its reverse little alarm on. That is our sign. That is our sign that the alarm bell should be going off here. That we think that it is going to negatively impact our relationships if we take care of ourselves. If I make it all about me, then that's going to piss other people off. It's going to push other people away because they're just going to think that I'm so full of myself, they're going to get sick of it and they're not going to want to stick around. But here is the truth. And I'm going to say it again, the exact opposite is true. Because when you are not taking care of yourself, when you feel bad about yourself, when you are not loving and respecting and investing in yourself, how do you show up in your relationships? You show up feeling needy. You show up feeling like you take everything personally, right? You show up being overly sensitive to whatever it is because you're not feeling good on here. So it's showing up out here. That when we're not taking care of ourselves, when we're not loving ourselves, when we're not feeling good about ourselves, then we read into things, we overanalyze things. We are always trying to figure out, what did they mean by that? What does this say about me? What's going on here? And we're always trying to figure it out. And often we are seeing it through this filter. We are taking in information from our partners, from our friends, from our other family members. We are seeing it through this filter of criticism, of judgment, even if it's not, we are filtering it through that. We take something small and we turn it into a big thing and we take it personally and we get really upset about it and then we get into fights and we have this back and forth and everything explodes. Let me know if you've ever experienced that. Let me know if you struggle with taking things really personally. Because if you struggle with taking things personally, it's because you have not built up your own person. You have not created that solid foundation that allows you to filter things in a more neutral way, that allows you to just be able to see what the other person is saying and just acknowledge what they are saying without making it a personal affront to you, without making it mean something terrible about you. So when you feel good about yourself, when you are loving yourself without apology, you show up differently in your relationships. You don't read into things. You don't take things personally. You're able to work through issues in a clean and clear way. You're able to resolve conflict without bringing in all kinds of other stuff. Well, you meant this, and this is what you think about me, and this is what you really feel about me, and I just suck, and I'm just not good enough, and you don't really love me, right? Like we cloud it with all of this stuff instead of being like, okay, let's take this issue and let's sort this out as two grown-ups coming in it in a clean way without clouding it all up with all of this other stuff, with all this other filter of me all of a sudden making it all about me and my lack of lovability and my lack of worthiness. The people in the Shift Society who've been doing this work, there's people posting all the time in our private Facebook group about how much this work has been transforming their relationships, how much more solid their relationships are getting, how much better they are feeling in their relationships by doing this work, by investing in ourselves to clean up our thoughts and beliefs about who we are and what we are and why we are and what we deserve and all of that stuff. And building that deep sense of self-love by building that deep confidence, that real confidence, not the made up sort of, I'm going to pretend, that I'm, so great, but I actually don't believe it. Building that deep sense from the inside. This is our focus in the Shift Society for the next couple months. We're going to be really deep diving into self-love, into building it, cultivating it, practicing it, living it, being it. If this is work that you want to dive deeper on, come and join us in the Shift Society. The link is in the description below. Blocks to loving yourself. Thinking it'll make you selfish. It'll make you think about yourself more, which the opposite is true. Because you think that investing in yourself is going to make people judge you as someone who is selfish. But the opposite is true. Thinking that it's going to make your relationships worse because you're going to start making your relationships all about you. The opposite is true. Let me know what connected with you from this. Would love to hear from you. And until next time, take good care.